a second question that basically followed that. Is the KIMS kit geo-fenced? And the other backup kits, are they geo-fenced? My answer to it is yes, because at the opening of the polling station, whereby the information in the KIMS kit is going to be for a given sector beyond the polling station. At the opening of the polling station, you use a QR code to lock the polling station to the 700 voters who are actually in that polling station. And therefore, the information that is going to be used for the purpose of identification is going to be the 700 maximum, or the 200, or the 19, whoever has actually been, is in that polling station. So the KIMS kit is going to lock itself. It is going to lock itself to the 700 voters for that specific polling station. And therefore, all identification will be going through the 700 or the number of registered voters in that polling station. So that is how the KIMS kit is going to work. I think there was the issue of and also the backup kits. The backup kits also, you also asked whether they're also going to be geofence. My answer to is yes. Before you use them, still, when you bring the backup kit and you insert the SD card, the SD card, you still also need to use the QR code to lock yourself to the same 700 voters. So you are not going to go away from that. You are going to use the 700 voters in that specific polling station. In terms of a gazetted registered polling station, I think at some opportune time the Commission is going to gazette the number of voters in each and every polling station. That is going to be done. Iebc, can Iebc demonstrate what is being populated in the SD cards? I think this is something that the Commission can be able to deliberate upon and provide its direction on the same. But personally, as a person, I have no problem. I have no problem in stakeholders going to observe what is actually being done. Like I said, we have got a factory specifically for producing the KIMS kit. Even as we speak, there are people who are working there. We have not reached that stage of populating information into the duplicating the SD card. But if that is requested, I'm sure the Commission actually, they are hearing and they can be able to provide direction with regard to that. I also wanted to, there was a question for me just to provide assurance that that everybody is going to vote if we are going to use this method. Yes, everybody is going to vote. That everybody is going to vote if we are going to use this method. Yes, everybody is going to vote. Who is a legitimate voter is going to vote if we use the KIMS kit. So as long as you come with your identification documents and you present yourself there, because that is the only way we can be able to positively identify you. Like I said before, the default method is to use your biometrics, your fingerprints. But if it fails, you will still give us your identification document. We will take it, enter your ID number or your passport number into the KIMS kit, and it will retrieve your information. Once this information is retrieved, you can be able to see who is there. Remember also, there are people who do not have fingers. They don't have hands. So does it mean that they are not going to vote? They are going to vote because we are going to use that method to identify them. And once we identify, we can be able to see them. The picture is actually there, and therefore they will be allowed. To vote. There was the issue of where there is no connectivity. What happens? I think we are going to talk about that in terms of results. But I wanted to let this meeting know that as a commission, we are not saying that the physical register should not be used. We are saying that if we are to use a physical register, it should be the last resort. physical register.
Use the digital, to use the fiscal, they use the digital register exclusively of the fiscal register. That's my understanding from Mr. Paul Mange and Mr. Oye. What we shall do as we wait for the hearing and determination of that case is the commission then will proceed with the ballot printing as well as printing the register for each polling station in terms of what we have in the KIMS kit as we await that determination of that case or further deliberations. I don't know who went to court, but I'm sure the lawyers then can advise on the way forward. Instead of us discussing here, because the matter's in court, I think we leave it that way for now. We shall print the register as we wait for other deliberations in court and or any other forms of discussions and settlement. I think that will be the way out for this matter. We can move on to the next item.
There is one aspect you have not still handled. The issue of whether you can allow accountability and verifiability of the content that is being loaded, whether the commission is open enough to allow political parties to observe the process of what is being loaded into the KIMS kit.
Yes, I got your question. I thought the CEO attempted to answer it. We have a factory where we are processing the KIMS kit. We can ask the presidential candidates to join me on a tour of that factory. You'll observe what's happening. We have not reached the stage where we are loading the data, but the kits are being prepared. And any time now, we can agree on a date when we can tour, maybe with then we can be able to be on the same page. I think that would be good for transparency of the process. So, yes. Presidential candidates or their agents, that's yeah, we can work around that. Let's agree on that. But a very small number of maybe maximum 2 people from each side, because of the sensitivity of the process. So we are open to that. I think the team then, the CEO, can liaise with the good thing is that you are not many, so we can arrange this quickly. And you're all here. By the end of this session, we can agree.
Just on a related matter to that, the law mandates the commission to set up a technology committee. I don't know when you're going to be setting that one up. I think a lot of the technical issues we are discussing will be thrashed out if you set up that technology committee and have stakeholders be part of it.
Okay. 2017, we had a committee and somebody went to court. And that provision of the law was declared unconstitutional. So that committee was ceased to exist. So we shall not have a committee with the stakeholders, but we are available to engage and you work with us this journey. So we shall arrange that team by the end of today. We shall agree which date we are going to the factory, and we see the processes ongoing there. So thank you. Can we wrap this up?
Mr. Yes. Chairman, I just thought the neater way to wrap it up. What is being questioned is not identification, electronic identification. It's the issue of complementarity. So our ending note should be, it's quite clear that the primary method is electronic. The issue now left open for the court is the complementarity, so that we are clear and we move on. And we'll appreciate short, precise interventions, short, precise answers, so that we can finish.
Just one last thing, Mr. Chairman. It is on record that in 2017, 2.5 million voters were not identified through the KIMS kits. And those KIMS kits in 2017 were still new. We have been keeping them in storage for the last 5 years. We have already been told that 4,000 of them are defective. 4,000 out of 46,000 is a big percentage. So therefore, we really are not saying we are opposed to technology. In fact, we are not saying that technology should not be applied. But what should be noted also is that our elections are not 100% technology-based. Technology is a small part of this election. The rest of the election, by law and by practice, is actually manual. The casting of the vote is manual. And a big part of it is actually the casting of the ballot. So therefore, we are not saying we have a problem with technology at all. We also know, Mr. Chairman, that these gadgets...
Are we reopening the conversation again?
No.
On the
it's just to expand the areas of conversation. And, these gadgets will be used by human beings. They will not use themselves. And we have a concern, Mr. Chairman, concerning the personnel that has already been appointed by this commission. That concern was expressed by our presidential candidate in his letter to the commission on the 5th of this month. Mr. Chairman, we have noted some very worrying trends with ethnic imbalance of returning officers both at the county and at the constituency level. This country is a country of at least 50 ethnic groups. 50 ethnic groups. But we have noted that out of 47 county returning officers, nearly 10 are from one community. Out of 47.
Can I give some direction here?
Out of 200.
What you are raising now is a totally new issue, which we have no problem discussing, but I thought we need to move in a structured manner. Let's finish with the agenda of the day, then we can address that issue. And I remember addressing it in the correspondence between Asmio and ourselves. We can revisit it now and make clarity on it, but I suggest we finish the agenda of the day. Yes. Yeah, then we can deal with that.
But that's an issue we want to put on record today.
Yes, I have no problem with that. We are here for you. But let's just finish the issue of the results part, then we can take a note of, you can complete that line. Thank you. Yeah, Marjan, please proceed on the result part. Then if you have any other question, please hold it so that we can move in a structured manner. But I agree that the primary identification is the biometric. The commission will prepare the registers because we don't have time to wait for the outcome of the court. We shall run out of time. The decision then to make is subject to the court judgment or ruling, whatever will come out, is whether to use the register in the manner we used 2017 or whether we shall have the register at the polling stations, and if it's required, if the KIMS kits fail, then the commission will have to make a decision whether to use it or not. I think those are areas we can revisit when the matter comes up in court. So, Marjan, proceed. I'm trying to move this meeting forward, and I know we have the ladies and gentlemen in this room, you want to run out and start seeing your voters out there, so we don't want to be here the whole day. Is it about the register?
Chairman, and I do apologize that I had to interrupt, but I appreciate the fact that you agree that you will prepare to have the manual register as a backup, as a secondary document, should the courts uphold and extend their current interim orders. But as we say that, we need to agree on what are the protocols. Because by the time you escalate to fall back on the secondary document, which is a manual register, it should be agreed that this will happen. All agents will have agreed. It's escalated to this level, and approval will come at this level. So it's just not there for you when people feel like it. There has to be protocols agreed here on that point. So I hope we'll work on that going forward. Thank you.
Yes, your comment is noted. Thank you.
I wanted somebody to project the...
And briefly, not much detail, just yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much. So it's about the results part. So what normally will happen after voting has been done, counting has been completed, the results from 34A is going to be filled by the presiding officer after the counting, and this results is going to be confirmed by the agents. Once they confirm, then the returning officer, the presiding officer, sorry, and the agents will sign the Form 34A. After signing the Form 34A, the presiding officer will now launch the results transmission application, and after that, they will capture the image of the Form 34A and transmit the Form 34A to the National Tallying Center as well as the Constituency Tallying Center. And thereafter, the presiding officer will give copies of the Form 34As to all the agents. One copy is going to be pasted on the ballot box. One copy is going to be pasted at the door of the polling station. And after that, the presiding officer will then now move physically with the physical documents, that is the Form 34As, to the Constituency Tallying Center. The Constituency Tallying Center returning officer is going to receive the Form 34As, and of course, before that, we would have been in a position to access the images of what was scanned before and sent at the polling station. So through our backend system, the returning officer is in a position to access the images of the Form 34As for the respective constituency. The returning officer, even as they are waiting for the physical copies to come, they will basically populate the information using the image to the Form 34B. Form 34B is a collation of all the Form 34As. Once all the polling stations have been populated, we will use now the physical copy to verify again entry one by one. The physical copies received will be used to verify all entries in each and every polling station in presence of the political party agents. Once that one now is done, then the agents again will sign the Form 34B plus the returning officer and the deputy returning officer. Then from there, the physical copies again will be taken by the returning officer to the National Tallying Center returning officer, who is the chairman. And I wanted to just state maybe what is going to happen at the tallying center. We will have of course, when the presiding officers goes to the constituency tallying center, they will go with 6 ballot boxes, presidential, governor, and the rest. So it will be expected that he will have to work and make sure that all those announcements are basically made for each and every polling station, because the returning officer for each and every polling station results come, he must be able to announce that. And therefore, he will be expected to announce all of them. But because of the importance of the presidential results, and this time that's why we have recruited two deputy returning officers. So the returning officer can now be relieved to take the physical copies to the national returning officer. And the national returning officer also will be in a position to access the scanned image of the Form 34As. And also, if they want, they can be able to start preparing their Form 34C. But a suffice to say that Form 34B is the soft copy will also be scanned and also be transmitted to our backend servers. And therefore, what is going to be available for the purpose of public and for the purpose of stakeholders is going to be the scanned copies of Form 34As as well as Form 34Bs. And at the National Tallying Center, they will be handing over and taking over of the physical forms that have been received from the returning officers. The chairman and of course his team, they will actually use the Form 34Bs that have been brought to them to verify all the entries of the polling stations using the physical Form 34As. And after verifying all of them, they will now be able to prepare Form 34C. Of course, as they do that, they pay attention to any errors that may actually occur. These errors are going to be recorded in error collection form, and this report is also going to be presented. In essence, the National Returning Officer must satisfy himself that all the entries in the Form 34Cs have been physically verified by the Form 34As, and that the agents present are also going to validate the same. And finally, then the Form 34C is going to be signed by the National Returning Officers, National Returning Officer, as well as the political party agents. It's only after that then the chairman can be able to declare who is the winner. Suppose there is no winner because no one has met the 50% plus one margin and the 25% of the majority county, then it means that a runoff is going to be there, and the chairman is going to declare accordingly that in the next 30 days, then there's going to be a runoff. So that's a simple projection in terms of how the results is going to be sent from one point to the other. Thank you very much.
In all this, what we are saying as a commission is that all the presidential candidates, we are encouraged to have agents in all polling stations. Your agents find a way of with then we move to Uda. Gano, if you have anything, and Roots Party in that order. Thank you.
I think you'll allow me to cover a few points, all related and very, very fast. One of them is the issue of agents. The perennial complaint in every petition, whether presidential or gubernatorial, like I participated in, is kicking out of the agents by your presiding officers. So to enhance transparency, we are proposing that you not only release the identification badges for agents to candidates 2 days before, but that identification plus the oath are the only thing an agent needs to get access, and your officers must not have any authority to send out an agent unless if an agent commits a criminal offense, in which case the police at that polling station will have recorded that incident. I want to agree with your proposal that agents should sign. Therefore, the presence of the agent, unless if they have committed a criminal offense and the party is at liberty to replace, the signing of the result form 34A and in all other elections by the agents ought to be mandatory, and your form should have a column for the agent to say, I agree or disagree with the results. We also want, it's good you are transmitting the results. You have promised us copies, but you've been printing only 6 copies of the form, 4 of which are for use by the Commission. As you can see in this presidential election, we are 4 presidential candidates. Therefore, 2 copies are not enough. We don't want to ask you to print more copies and incur more money for the government. We just want the right as agents to be able to take WhatsApp images of the form once it is ready. That way, whatever you transmit electronically cannot have vifaranga via computer, because the form will be out, everybody will have it, and the press, if they are in the room, will also have it. The gag on announcing what is tallied at the station should be removed. When either the press or other people say how many votes were garnered, and they are on that form, they are not making the official announcement. They are giving the provision. They just state, this is what we witnessed. That enhances transparency. So 2 things. Your officers must not have the right to send out agents unless if there is an incident recorded by the police and the party has a right to replace. Number 2, WhatsApp images. Those who are able to have smartphones, and I'm certain that in every room there will be at least 1 or 2 people with a smartphone. We must take WhatsApp images. The story of the vifaranga via computer will die at that stage, and that will enhance the transparency of the elections, which is ordered or commanded by Article 86 of the Constitution. On the door. Oh, sorry, only 1 point. I'm being reminded by my principal that the order of counting in every polling station, it should be clear that they start with the presidential ballot. They don't always do so. I've been at polling stations where it is not done that way. So let the commission be clear. And finally, people commit deliberate electoral offenses. That is employees of the commission, and they hide behind the word commission. We want to request you to unequivocally and publicly tell your officers that anybody who violates the electoral code deliberately, we will face the law individually. Last year I tried to privately prosecute 3 of your officers. Now that we are busy in elections, I may drop the appeal, but we need them to know that it is personal responsibility. The elephant called the commission must be dissected to that polling clerk, to that candidate, to everybody. Thank you. So that we don't come back, I'm being reminded that, I think the audit report had already been asked in the previous by our competition in UDA, and I think we are in agreement that yes, we need the audit report by KPMG, but that now can also be bared to us as we inspect your factory.
Thank you. UDA.
Thank you, Chair. On the 9th of June, when you invited party representatives, candidates, and their agents to simulate the electronic transmission, result transmission system, the stakeholders pointed quite a number of shortcomings on that system that was presented to us. Number one, it was not user-friendly. We asked you to make it user-friendly. And the second, there were also a number of other bottlenecks, particularly transmission and the time it was taking for information to be transmitted from a polling station to you. I think we would like to know what effort has been made, or whether you're going to be doing another simulation that includes the comments we had made. Second, we fully embrace the system of the results forms pathway that you have presented. The bigger concern is on the transmission of the results from the polling station direct to the National Tally Center. And we will ask the Commission to share with the chief agents the GPS coordinates of all the KIMS kits. I think it's critical so that we can know it is actually the KIMS kit that was deployed to that polling station that is transmitting. But also provide a backup access to chief agents so that they are able to confirm the GPS of the KIMS kits as they transmit the results. We will also want you to make assurance not only to us but also to the public that the public portal will be accessible even when many Kenyans are logging in. I think we need that assurance that information will be available at any particular time. And of course, I know the Commission has asked parties to have one agent in a polling station. We are asking you allow candidates also that are going to be in this election to be able to have agents to represent them in the various polling stations where voters will be voting. Thank you. Unless my colleagues wants to add, I think Dr. Linda Musumba is head of legal in Presidential Secretariat.
Chair, I don't know whether you can hear me, but during the 2017 petition, the question arose about the presidential, ballots, being more than the others, and then the issue arose that people are preferring to vote for the president rather than the others. But the question arose, what happens to the other five?
Say that again. There's a bit of noise here.
Sorry, Chair, I was asking, during the 2017 presidential election petition, the question arose, what happens to the other 5 ballot papers where a person does not wish to vote for the president? And the Commission, through that process, explained that each ballot paper, even if one opts or elects not to mark it, ought to put it inside the different ballot boxes. So we just wanted to know the accountability mechanism that the Commission has put in place to ensure that if we're going to get 2,000, let's say, votes in a ballot box for presidential, that we shall get the same number in the others, so that we don't have a situation where the papers in the presidential are many more than in the other boxes. We just wanted that accountability mechanism to be explained. Thank you.
Yes, now on the, let's finish with Uda, you're done. Go to Agano, then I see Asmio is not done yet. But let's finish with Agano first. Yeah.
Asanti mwenyekiti, yangu tu ni kuongezea yale yamesemwa na wenzangu na kusema hivi, ningependa kuomba commission ya kwamba muongezee matangazo ya kuwaelimisha Wakenya kuhusu haki zao kwa polling station. Ni ukweli wa kwamba returning officer hawa wenyu hata hao wanarig kushinda wengine wote. They confuse people. They act like they are small gods. And if you don't have an agent, you are at their mercy in the particular place. Na kaza kwamba mimi sijui kama nitaweza kupata maagent kote Madera na kwingineko. Unajua mimi sina pesa ya serikali ama ya kashfa ya kuandika maagent popote. And I have seen them do these things. But let me finish my point. Let me stick to the point.
Let's have some decorum in the meeting.
No. Yeah, I'm talking the truth. Please run more campaigns, please, on educating on their rights. I agree with the honorable running mate. Allow people to use electronic gadgets to capture what's happening, because there's a lot of abuse that goes on there. And one more point from us, Bishop, very quickly.
We want to seek leave, attend to other matters, but we have a very robust team behind us. We apologize for leaving before the end. But duty call.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. My question is just direct to the point. CEO has just told us that every Kenyan who is legitimate to vote has right to vote. I don't know what arrangements are in place regards the people who are likely to be in the hospital or possibly they are not fully incapacitated. Others are aged at home. What are the arrangements to have them receive their legal right to vote? Thank you.
Yes, we want to deal with those comments.
Mr. Chair,
is it about the results?
Yes.
Yes, transmission, yeah.
Mr. Chair, you talk about 1,111 polling stations. Mr. Chair, you talked about 1,111 polling stations that do not have connectivity to 3G. What methodology are you going to use to have access to all these polling stations? The second issue is the issue of the transmitted images. They will be stored in your servers, and you said you will have an access to a portal. Are you going to allow us to have an API access to that portal? And are we able to get it maybe 2 to 3 weeks prior for purpose of integration? The third issue is the issue of the transmission that has been raised earlier. Is that the process wasn't as successful as the simulation? Are you able to give us, number one, that the same can be redone again? Number two, whether the same can be commenced where all the police stations are tested so that we are able to successfully stress test the entire infrastructure. Thirdly, in the 2017 elections, there was the issue of the servers. Are we having our data stored locally, or is it being hosted outside? And if it is stored locally, how certain are we that the entire transmission from the entire 46,000 polling station will be successful? Additionally, Mr. Chair, just on the earlier issue of the KIMS kit, you did transfer from the old infrastructure provider to a new service provider with the Smartmatics. How certain are we that the entire data that was originally stored by the earlier service provider has been transferred? This in regard to the biometrics data. That information has it that was not successfully done and was not successfully ported. And in that issue, if it was successfully ported, are you able to provide us a data destruction certificate from the earlier service provider, guaranteeing that the entire data that was originally stored by them has been destroyed so that the new service provider has access to that? And finally, Mr. Chair, the data will be transmitted from each of the polling stations through a secure connection. How secure is the entire connection? Because earlier the CEO alluded to the fact that the transmission or each of the KIMS kit will remain offline until the time of connection. So technically, any KIMS kit can be able to transmit, because technically it means that if the KIMS kit are not necessarily online, the issue of geofencing is not there. The CEO talked about each of the KIMS kit will be geofenced. That is not the case, because what is geofenced technically is the SD card, but not the actual hardware, which should be restricted to operate within a given area. So what you have locked within each of the polling stations is the SD card, but not the actual hardware that we expect should be locked. Because if you don't lock the specific hardware, we have information that about 4,000 KIMS kits are lost. So technically, you're saying that anybody can walk in with any KIMS kit and be able to have access to the same. So provide us that update at least so that we're able to be sure of that. Then finally, the connectivity issue, Mr. Chair. Just for a second. Yeah. We are saying that each of the polling center will provide an image. I mean, the capability of each of these networks transmitting more than 24 GB of data within any given time, owing to the fact that every one of them will transmit data at one given hour, will be impossible. In the last 2017 election, the biggest challenge was that the data was transmitted at the given time and was text data. This time it will be image data. So if our infrastructure cannot have the capability to host this data on real time, we'll have a serious crisis. There's a possibility that your data centers will not support this capacity, and we would like the same done with an actual testing. If the last testing wasn't successful, can you show us by a demonstrable test that is actually going to work? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Lastly, Roots Party.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Chairman, for hosting us and the other presidential candidates. We'd like to appreciate what you have always done. You have, as you mentioned, an open door policy, you and your commissioners. Thank you for all listening to our concerns. But for now, my presidential candidate and myself would request leave. Thank you, Chairman, for hosting us and the other presidential candidates. We'd like to appreciate what you have always done. You have, as you mentioned, an open door policy, you and your commissioners.
Thank you. I will ask Professor, you and the CEO, and anybody from the technical team to make comments on the issues that have been raised. But just suffice to say that at every polling station, we shall have sufficient result forms for all the agents of presidential candidates who will be in attendance. Yeah, only 4 presidential candidates, and 4 forms will be available in each polling station. So, but again, as a commission, we shall allow transparency. The media, yourselves, your teams can take WhatsApp images of the results. We have no problem with that. Tabulate your results, come to the National Tallying Center with your results, so that we compare what we have and what you have. That's what we are saying for transparency purposes. Professor Marjan.
At least I'm safe. There are a number of issues. I will only respond to some. I will leave others for my colleagues, including the CEO. The starting point is the issue of kicking out of agents by POs. We had discussion with our staff yesterday. As you may be aware, we have all our national staff undergoing a planning meeting as we speak in Bomas, planning for the election. And one of the things, one of the discussions we had was about agents. It is not the intention of the policy to kick out any agent of any political party or candidate. And if the allegations of agents being kicked out, then the commission needs to be alerted, the presiding officer needs to be alerted, the county election manager needs to be alerted so that action is taken against those POs. The issue of agents signing results form, it is provided for in the regulations. Agents will sign the results form, but from experience, we know some agents of some candidates, when their candidates are not winning, they don't want to sign the form. And the law envisages that not signing by an agent of the result form does not nullify the result. I think we should be clear on that as well. Okay? The issue of agents taking pictures of the forms, I think we discourage pictures in the polling stations because we want to preserve the sanctity of and the privacy of the voter. And if this can be done in a manner that does not expose, then the commission can have deliberations with stakeholders and see how that can be provided in terms of just taking an image of the result. We can discuss how we can do it. I don't know whether the legal team of Iebc will be in agreement, but I think we can discuss that. Okay? Result transmission simulation challenges. I don't know, somebody has a hand up and I'm still responding.
Thank you. Just one interjection. I think the issue of saying that we cannot have cameras in the polling station because you want to respect the sanctity of the secret vote. Nobody is taking pictures in the booth where the person is. That is where it's not allowed. But in terms of taking the result form or taking a video of the returning officer making the announcement, I think we are permitted to do that.
I thought I said we will sit with you guys and agree on a protocol. Is that a problem? Okay? I didn't say otherwise. Okay? In terms of results simulation, of course, it was a simulation, and a simulation is to test. And when you test, it can either pass or not pass. We did a simulation. There were a few challenges. One of the main challenges was that all our MNOs, mobile network operators, were not on board. They had some logistics in terms of moving some of the kits to the far distant counties where the testing was to, result transmission was to happen. So we had a few challenges, and we had internally said we will redo it again. And so when we are having learned lessons from that, the challenges that we had, so we will advise you accordingly. Now, yes, the GPS coordinates of all polling stations will be shared with political parties. We actually gave GPS coordinates to the Communication Authority, and that is how they mapped out polling stations or polling centers that are outside 3G coverage areas. So this can be shared with political parties. Public portal accessibility, I will leave to Marjan to address that. In terms of agents, one agent per party not being enough. We have classrooms as our polling stations. And you know our primary schools, how small the classrooms are. We have elective positions where, for example, in MCA, in the last election, in the range of 40 candidates. Just one elective position. And we have a huge number of independent candidates. So if each candidate is to have an agent, that classroom will be congested. Again, we need to have a discussion on how to better manage the agenting process so that the poll officials and the agents can be accommodated in the classrooms that we have. It is not our intention to shut out anybody's agent, but we need to operate within the spaces that we use as polling stations. Now, the question was asked, how do we ensure the 6 ballot papers that you give to a voter is accounted for? It is the Commission's desire that ballot papers issued to a voter are all placed in respective ballot boxes. We've even made it easier to match the color of the ballot paper with the lid of the ballot box. And this is for purposes of ensuring that the voters are guided. And part of our trainings is to ask our presiding officers to ensure that ballot papers issued are put in respective boxes. If you don't want any candidate, leave it blank, but put in the respective ballot box. But sometimes the reason earlier on when we were discussing the issue of the register, the reason why we are saying putting more emphasis on the digital register is because when there is this manual register, if in that particular locality is a stronghold of a particular, for example, presidential candidate, and if they cannot agree on the other seats, at least they agree on a presidential candidate. So in that respect, they may issue ballot papers of a presidential candidate and put in the presidential ballot box, and they may not bother with the others. So this sometimes makes a disparity between the figures of voters for presidential and the other candidates. And hence, it's part of the reasons why we are saying, let's have more on the digital. Our focus should be more on the digital register than the ballot, the physical ballot paper, register of voters. So we will train, it's a matter for training, we will train our presiding officers to ensure that the 6 ballot papers issued to a voter are all accounted for in the different ballot boxes. There were issues about somebody asking people in hospitals their right to vote. I think there's so much the Commission can do. We have designated, gazetted polling stations. We cannot convert every hospital bed to be a polling station. And we have no capacity to bring every 6 patient in a hospital to come to a ballot, to come and vote in a polling station. It is a shared responsibility. As Kenyans, if you have relatives, friends that are able, that can be taken to vote, we will be more than happy to welcome them to the polling station and to facilitate their voting. Reference was made to the 1,111 polling centers with no 3G and perhaps what arrangements we are doing. We've had similar incidents in 2017. And as I've always responded to on this matter, funds allowing, we will deploy satellite modems to ensure that we have coverage in terms of network connectivity in those areas to facilitate transmission of the image of the result forms. In terms of API access, I'll leave it to Marjan. You can deal with that. And also handle that together with the stress test for simulation in terms of the digital images that comes to our servers. On the cloud storage, is it locally? We are not using any cloud storage this time. We are using our resources within the territory of Kenya. We are not outside the country. And so, in the event that there will be a cloud, it will be a cloud within the Kenyan space. But for now, our focus is on the infrastructure that we have deployed to be used within the country in terms of the primary and secondary data centers that we have in the country. The issue of all data in MOFO and the transmission of data from one service provider to the other, you can, Marjan, address that. As well as the geofencing of kits. Of course, geofencing, as you rightly put it, can only happen once they are online. But the beauty with the kit is that once it gets locked to that particular station, it can because there is also a SIM, and if this SIM is active, we also need the kit to transmit voter turnout data at intervals of 2-3 hours. So ideally, the kit should be connected to enable that transmission of that data. But for purposes of the register, we already preload it, and we do not need connectivity to access details of voters in terms of identification. So I think I'll invite Marjan to finish off the remaining questions. Thank you very much.
The question of presidential ballot. Regulation 83 requires that, the Regulation 83 requires that the presidential shall be announced first, and that's the rule. But then there is the issue of if the presidential ballot was mistakenly placed at the ballot, and yet you have started the presidential ballot. In some cases, there have been problems and discrepancies as a result. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the issue of the counting of the votes, I think the regulations are very clear. It starts with the presidential ballot box first.
Okay.
And so that is not in dispute. It's already part of our training program.
For joining us.
Now, for purposes of
this session on youth as partners in Black Service. My name is Rebecca Nyankia. I work with the National AIDS Control Council. I am the program officer for adolescents and young people. So really, young people are very close.
What is happening?
This session is on youth, as I said, youth as partners in blood services. And I don't know about you, but as myself, when I was 18 or 15 or in campus, I was obviously not.
We have been overrun. Is it a technology failure?
I understand why it's an important conversation for us to have.
Complimentary.
So I think it's important for us to figure out how to engage young people more and how to make this an important cause for them, given that they're the largest number.
But anyway, if a ballot paper,
for that reason,
if a ballot is cast in the wrong ballot box,
we also have some people joining us.
We will not transfer it to the right ballot box. And I think, Owie, you can correct me. It is a spoiled.
So when we get into the
strange stray ballot paper. If it is a stray ballot paper, it's not counted as a valid vote.
The purpose of this session
and that is the procedures that we have. Okay? It's already taken care of in terms of our training. In fact, we have a spoiled,
so the purpose of this session is that
rejected,
young people. What are some of the challenges that they face in terms of blood
donation? You may want to come and elaborate on that, Owie.
And how this can be a relevant conversation for them as
I'll give you a chance to elaborate on that. But if a ballot paper is not in its rightful box, then it's not counted as a validly cast ballot paper. Okay? I don't know if if it answers. Okay. Marjan?
Yeah,
I just wanted to say something before my Jan answers. Mr. Chairman, we appreciate the session, and I just want to note that obviously this is a process. We want to make sure that every phase of the process is credible and believable. And I just wanted to raise an issue about procurement, and that concerns procurement for the printing of the ballot papers. We want some more information about where the printing is being done, who is doing it, what company is responsible, and perhaps the ownership of that company. And secondly, the question of the procurement of technology. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, you can hear me now. I'll stand up. I just wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, that we appreciate the process of this conversation. Obviously, we appreciate that the election is a process. We want to make sure that every phase of the electoral process is credible and believable to the public. One area that concerns us is the question of the printing of the ballot papers. We want to know who is printing the ballot papers, where they are being printed, and we want to make sure that their custody is secure, and we want to make sure that you can assure us how that security will be given for the ballot papers. It will be important for us also to know who owns the company that is printing the ballot papers. Secondly, there's a question of technology. We understand that Smartmatic is a company that is registered somewhere in Panama, is providing the technology. We'd like to know, again, the ownership of the company, the connections to the company that people in this country may or may not have, so that we can be sure that the procurement process is transparent. I think you'll appreciate our concern on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What
It was not user-friendly. Have we addressed? The answer is yes. We've been working with the vendor since 9th to improve on some of the features. For example, it was not clear in each county, in each constituency, how many results had been received so far. That will become more clear in the new version we are working on. Number 2, assurance that the public portal will be accessible. I wish to confirm again, it will be on the public internet, accessible to the media, observers, and the general public. In addition, we are working on the API. Someone asked when you'll have access. We understand you need time for integration of the API. We are working on this, and from next week, we're going to start engaging with the technical representative of all the major political parties, the presidential candidates, so that they understand the technology we are using. We work together on technical issues like API, so that they are ready as well to prepare themselves. As the chairman said, if they want to do their own parallel tallying. I've answered on API. Data migration. There was a question on what assurance that we've migrated and deleted data from the previous vendor after migration to the new vendor. The fact is, we have not deleted data from the previous vendor because that data remains reference. We do not want to delete its reference and will be retained until we maybe at least 3 years, because it is a reference data that we paid for. So there's no need to give you evidence of deletion. We have not deleted it. We still keep it as reference. But the entire register, as at that time of 19.8, has been migrated to the new vendor. In addition, we added about 2.5 or so million voters registered through ECVR 1 and 2, and deleted dead voters and people who had registered with fake documents. And as the chairman announced, the register now stands at 22.1 million voters after all that is done. The last is geofencing. Geofencing of the tablets. Geofencing means the tablet is marked to only operate from a certain point using satellite technology to mark where it is at any single point. There's a debate on what to do. Do you geofence because it consumes a lot of power? Do you geofence and use so much power that you cannot, as a result, work with the kit the entire day, transmit result, transmit logs? Most of these kits, we expect them to work for at least, I think, 12 hours. So we decided to select that instead of geofencing, we keep entire serial numbers of all the kits, and we assign each kit to a specific polling station. This data will be shared with all the political parties before the elections, so that you are able to verify post-election or during the polling that the same kit that was used, the same kit that we shared is in a specific polling station is where it's supposed to be. I realize your concern here was that you are saying 4,000 kits have been lost and can be used to transmit spurious results. This cannot happen. In the security we have deployed in the new system, and indeed even in 2017. Before, in the production facility that you are going to visit, you are going to see that the servers that will receive results will be pre-configured to know which kits can transmit results, and only those kits which it knows can transmit. nobody else can install that software because they do not have access to that software. And that software is the only software that can transmit results. That will address your concern that there are 4,000 kits that are somewhere which can transmit results. Secondly, I wish also to clarify that we've not lost 4,000 kits. We bought 45,000 kits in 2017. We have tested all of them. About 41,000 of them are working. 3,000 are not working, and they are available for you to see. They are not lost. Hopefully, I've addressed all the technical questions that were asked. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Prof, the issue of the ballot paper factory.
Thank you, Chair. The ballot paper printing farm, Professor Mutua wants to know more about it. We also wanted to know more about it as commissioners because we are not involved in the procurement process, as you may know, as commissioners. And therefore, the commission directed that my committee go and inspect and see and quality assure on behalf of the commission and the people of Kenya that we have the right firm doing the printing of ballot papers and other statutory forms for us. I went with Commissioner Nyangaya. Maybe you stand up wherever you are. I also went with Commissioner Masit. And so the three of us, and we had two technical staff accompanying us, one from the Directorate of Voter Registration and Election Operations, and another staff from the Directorate of Procurement and Supply Chain Management. The company that has been given or awarded this contract is Inform Lycos. This is a company owned by a Greek national. It's a company that has been in security printing business since 1897. It is listed in Athens Stock Exchange since 1994. It has a strong European business footprint. It does print works for a number of countries in Europe. In addition, it does work for you in UK and also in US. It also does work for institutions and business companies in Middle East and also in Africa. They have 6 production facilities, and these facilities are spread across 3 European countries. We managed to visit 2 of the countries. We visited the main production facility in Athens. We also visited the other production facility in Romania. It employs over 1,400 people. The company produces, or rather measures in financial, does work for financial institutions in a number of European countries, UK and US. They do a lot of digital printing. They do security printing. They are involved in digital transformations. And they also do distribution services. The company is ISO 14298 certified. It is ISO 9001 certified. It is ISO 14001 certified. It is ISO 2701 certified. It is ISO 4501 certified. And it is ISO 30301 certified. It has various certifications for various activities, including security printing certifications. As a commission, we were interested in their preparation. As of the time we visited, which is I think slightly or less than a month ago, it had procured over 31 tons of UV dull security paper with custom-made watermark as per Iebc requirements. And what they procured is almost 75% of the requirements for the entire printing of the poll materials that we require for the election. The remaining 25% was in another facility which they get their raw materials from in Italy, and it was ready for shipment as and when they are asked to bring over. They had procured 100% of customization inks required, which were majorly 3 different types of inks, and they had required 100% of what was required for the entire print works. So in terms of capacity, we are very confident that they have the capacity to deliver. I was in the committee that was overseeing print works in 2017 for the ballot papers. I visited Al Ghurair severally then, and having had the opportunity to visit this time, this particular farm, I can confidently say they have twice the capacity of Al Ghurair. In fact, more than twice the capacity. The main production facility will be in Athens, but they have a redundancy parallel site in Romania which has identical equipments. The same equipments in Athens are the same equipments in Romania. And that can be used as a backup site in the event of any disaster happening in Athens. So as a commission, we are completely satisfied with their choice. They have the capacity. They are involved in businesses far more than the little contract we have given them. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, they are listed in the Athens Stock Exchange, and I don't think they will be doing any monkey business to jeopardize their vast business interests they have in several continents. And so that's the assurance we can give, Professor Makao Mutua. If there is anything else you want, we can ask you to go and see for yourself if you can pay your ticket. We were not even allowed to carry our let alone cameras, even our phones into the production facility. Whereas in Al Ghurair, we used to roam with our phones. So they are far more serious, and we believe we have made the right choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. I want to give way forward to this meeting. I recognize the presence of the UDA presidential candidate and the chief agent. You are ably represented. Is it a question on ballot paper? Prof, so you don't move, stay there. I just want to say that the technical team will actually be arranging a meeting with the technical teams from the 4 presidential candidates on the issues of technology and visitation of our factory. So that is being done, and also other issues which we may not exhaust here today. then can be discussed in our follow-up meeting next week. We may not be able to exhaust everything, and because we also understand your other schedules. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Now the team that did visit Greece and Romania to check all this preparation, what you say gives us really a lot of confidence. However, we cannot ignore history. This is the firm that in 2019 was linked to the postponement of elections in Nigeria because they were unable to deliver on time. So they might have all those security features. What guarantee did they give you? Because in Kenya, you understand even the impatience we already have when the station is not open for 2 hours. So if we have to postpone this election even by a day, imagine the kind of crisis we'll be dealing with in this country. Did you ask them about that particular occurrence? And what guarantee did they give you that we'll have this delivered in time?
Thank you. First of all, we asked the same question. You botched Nigeria elections. Why should we trust you? The first thing they told us was they were never contracted to do the Nigeria election. The truth of the matter was the Nigerian Electoral Commission contracted a local contractor who subcontracted a Chinese firm to do the ballot paper. The Chinese firm failed to deliver. And they were only contacted at the 11th hour to help them to print the ballot papers that were used in the finally in the election. So they were not the people who were contracted, who made the election to be postponed. I hope I'm clear, because we asked the same question. The other thing that probably I want to talk about, which I think it was part of the questions that Azimio had forwarded, and by Chairman, Azimio is cleverly sneaking in their questions instead of waiting for a formal response in this forum. I didn't want to stop you from entertaining them, but one of the things is about the security features of the election ballot papers. I sometimes joke with my colleagues from other EMBs in the African continent that our ballot paper, the Kenyan election ballot paper, has more security features than some monetary currencies of some African countries. We have 8 security features on our ballot paper. If you want the details, some are visible by the eye, others are invisible, some you need an extra magnifying lens to see, some you need, the UV lights to see. So there are all manner of security features which we can discuss with you, with your teams when you visit us. So our ballot paper, in short, is secure. If you want more details, we'll share with you when we meet the groups, especially when you are going for the factory visit. We can have a discussions around the exact features. We are also cautious not to kuanika nje alafu mnaenda kwa mahali ingine mkatengeza vitu zenu, si ndio?
Thank you, Prof. I want us to give closing remarks. I'm aware there are many issues, but we can't exhaust them today. My proposal is that each of the candidates, presidential candidates, should have a technical staff of 2 to meet with our technical staff and deal with the issues that we have not covered here. Number 2, we received a letter from SMEO yesterday. We are going to respond to each and every issue you have raised. And also, because there are matters of public concern, we shall share that with the rest of the candidates and the Kenyans at large. And so we cannot exhaust this meeting issues today.
Yeah,
yes, yes.
I just want to.
I want to. I'll give each team a chance to say something, but go ahead.
You had given us an assurance, Chair, that you'll give us an opportunity to raise the issue of the personnel of the Commission. So if, Chair, you could allow me, all these things we are talking about, this exercise will have a human element. The Commission has already recruited returning officers both for the county and for the constituencies. It has also deputy returning officers for the constituencies. Chair, we have noted with concern that there is a great tribal imbalance, ethnic imbalance in the composition of those returning officers. If you want the details, Chair, Kenya is a country that is made up of at least 50 communities, diverse communities. But when it comes to the returning officers at the county level, 10, nearly 10, because there are 8 from one community. And that community has a presidential candidate in this election. By comparison, the next community that has a candidate in this election at the top level only has 4 returning officers at the county level. Chair, we have also noted that at the constituency level, when it comes to returning officers and deputy returning officers, we are talking about 290 plus 290, 580. Out of 580 key personnel at the constituency level, we have nearly 100 from one community. I have the figures.
Can we answer?
Yes, I have the figures. I have the data. I have compared, even with the strength of these communities when it comes to the population of the country. The community that I'm talking about that is leading is not the community that is leading in terms of the general population, but yet in every aspect, they have at least double the number of personnel. Chair, you will note that these returning officers are the ones who are recruiting the actual personnel that will conduct this election at the polling station level. That is the real theater of operations for this election. And therefore, if we have...
we have understood your question.
Yes, yes. And lastly, on the same issue, we are already receiving complaints. We are already receiving complaints from some of these places where these officers are deployed. We are talking about Kisii, we are talking about Busia, we are talking about Bungoma. We are receiving complaints from the ground that the recruitment of presiding officers is not going, is going in a very skewed way. And therefore, kindly address that. These concerns will be followed by a written document. Thank you very much.
So, do we wait for the written or?
You can respond.
Yeah.
We will still follow it because I've not expressed everything that there is to express because of time.
Thank you. Prof, you want to say something? But as Professor speaks, I don't think there's any institution in this which has the face of Kenya as does have. But Prof, go on with it. And right now we have officers in Bomas. The face of Kenya is in Bomas. But Professor...
Thank you, Chair. The reason why we said we wanted to meet in camera is because some people get excited with camera. This is to politicize this
Unless
function.
you want to give me a right to respond.
Excuse me. You have asked a question, I
Do
will
not
have a
attack
right
my,
to
do
respond.
not attack my character. I'm here, I can defend
I
myself.
want to respond to
I
the
can defend
question
myself. Do
in
not
my
attack
own
my
manner.
character.
Okay?
Some order, please.
IEBC recruits personnel in this manner. When there is a constituency position, the recruitment is locked to the constituency. There are 290 constituencies in Kenya, which therefore means recruitment is based at the constituency level. The DRO, the Deputy Returning Officer, the Returning Officer are both recruited, and their ID must read they come from born and brought up in, or born in that constituency. This is to ensure we have the face of Kenya in the commission. When we have a county position, because we devolved our functions in 2017 when we came to office ourselves, we started the county manager position. The first criteria for employing somebody as a county manager or a county accountant or a county ICT or county supply chain is your ID must read that county. The commission has moved away from using temporary returning officers more than a decade ago. For anyone to insinuate we have just recruited ROs based on skewed tribal affiliation is misleading and wrong. We recruited our staff, some of them as far back as 2012. They are all permanent and pensionable staff of the commission. In 2017, when there were by-elections all over, the commission had a disciplinary process, having called all returning officers that had issues in their constituencies. We dealt with them. And the reason why we moved away from temporary ROs is because we want people who are on permanent and pensionable terms, who in the event something happens, they have a lot more to lose than just the 2-3 months they are hired. If you go to Bomas of Kenya today, there are 890 personnel of IEBC on full permanent and pensionable terms. They are the ones who are going to oversee the election. They oversaw the election in 2017 and in 2013. Let's not politicize the staff of IEBC. We are only recruiting temporary deputy constituency returning officer, one position. We have a permanent returning officer on permanent and pensionable terms, recruited in the manner I described earlier. And we have a permanent and pensionable deputy returning officer. So we are having an additional one that is temporary, so that we have in every constituency one returning officer and 2 deputy returning officers, one of them being temporary. And the temporary returning officer deals mostly with only logistical arrangements and not results. At the county level, we have a full-time permanent and pensionable county returning officer. What we have only done is to give him one temporary assistant to help him in the process. But at his disposal is a county ICT, a county accountant, and a county supply chain. So the issue of tribalizing IEBC or balkanizing into one of the 43 ethnic tribes does not arise. We are not a tribal institution. We are a national institution undertaking a national mandate. And our focus is purely on that. If you have a problem with any postings and you have an individual case, please come and see the chairman and say, I have an issue here. And we will deal with it. But criminalizing and giving an impression that the commission is only serving one ethnic group or ethnicity is wrong. We will not entertain that kind of, judgments by anyone. Our staff, we will defend them as much as it has to be, because we want them to be nationalists and to serve this country, regardless of where they are posted and whom they will be serving. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Prof. All the tribes of Kenya work for IEBC, including the smallest tribe. So, if you have any data to the contrary, share with me. There was a hand here. Has your issue been addressed? Yes, Professor.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Kithure Kindiki. On behalf of the UDA and the Kenya Kwanza Coalition, Mr. Chairman, we want to state that we have full confidence in the Commission and the returning officer of the presidential election. Mr. Chairman, thank you for giving us this opportunity. We have been represented here since 8 o'clock, and we've been updated that our team has raised most of the issues that we wanted to raise. I will only require, now that the presidential candidate is here in person on his behalf, you allow us 3 minutes, which I will share 2, and one member will share 1, and we'll finalize our submission. Mr. Chairman, we will be writing to you formally later today. I hear our counterparts, our competitors had also written to you, the Azimio group. We'll also be writing to you later today on the number of technical issues and operational issues which we think need to be addressed urgently. The one thing that we'll request in that letter is an urgent response, because we only have 4 or 5 weeks left and we need to be ready. Among the issues, Mr. Chairman, is the issue of the KPMG audit of the register. The gaps that were identified, we want to know them in the spirit of the transparency of the electoral process, both before, during, and after. We'd like to know what those gaps were and whether they have been addressed satisfactorily, because that is very critical. Secondly, if we could even have a copy of that report, because I think they're auditing a public process. It should not be a secret. It should be available even to the media, so that we know what gaps exist, when they will be addressed, and so forth and so on. Number 2, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the loading of the data into the KIEMS, I don't know at what point the agents of the various parties will be allowed to, at least, I know it's a huge process, transferring the manual register into the KIEMS and loading the KIEMS is a very huge and burdensome process. But the agents of the candidates can be allowed to at least sample or have access to that process, again, just for assurances that everything is okay, so that we are sure whatever is loaded electronically is consistent with what would be available manually. Thirdly, the visit to the printer, I think also should be, of course it's our business to organize, but we need facilitation from your side in terms of timelines, so that we also arrange for visas and tickets for our team who wants to go and see and visit the plant, and maybe synchronize with our competitors so that we get on the commission with separate visits. Thirdly, we are a bit dissatisfied with the response the commission has given on the issue of geofencing of the KIEMS kids. Extremely dissatisfied. We raised it in our letter. We'll say why. Because the fact that you have said this Kim's kit serial number this is assigned to a polling center this is not enough. Because the transmission of results can take place in a nearby forest and still within the same location. So there is need for the place where that transmission will take place to be controlled to the best possible location in terms of georeferences. Finally, we have a general issue on compliance by the players in the presidential campaign with the electoral code of conduct, which every candidate signed. We've seen incidents of inter-party violence and intra-party violence. We have had an incident in Jacaranda where our rally was disrupted violently. We have also seen our competitors the issues in Marsabit among themselves, in Marsabit, in Garissa, in Mandera. It's worrying. Our view is that although the commission does not have prosecution powers, because we saw your statement, but I'm sure there is something you can do, including warnings or whatever other method you can use to enforce that code of conduct so that the election is peaceful. I'll donate 1 minute to Moses Kuria, a member of the team. And half a minute for you, and we won't have a... And we were also that our friends spoke a lot. So there's need for balance of airtime. 1 minute for Moses Kuria, 1 minute for Veronica Maina.
I just do the minute, please. We need to move on to the next issue.
Thank you. I am concerned about the issue of agents because Professor Guri has said that their primary concern is to protect the commission staff, which is rightly so. But our primary commitment is to protect our agents. Elections are not stolen. Elections are lost by agents. So therefore, my concern is from previous experiences of the last elections. The issue of turning away agents on polling day. So the agents turn up, or you don't have original...
We already discussed that issue. It was raised in the morning. I think your team were here.
Please, allow me seek your indulgence because of, please, at the risk of annoyance. So this agent stands up at the polling center. They are told you don't have original oath of secrecy. You don't have original agent accreditation form. You don't have the badge. My question is it possible that you can have a pre-verification on a day before, maybe for the oath of secrecy and the agent form, so that the only thing that's retained by the commission, by the returning officer, is a badge? In 2017, in Kitui County, a Jubilee party had most of the agents stand away up to 2 o'clock. I'm not saying Professor Makamoto had anything to do with it, but up to 2 o'clock, Jubilee agents could not access, and have been involved in a number of by-elections after that. And this is a very, very, very serious problem. Secondly, and related to that, Professor Kuri has said that we want to minimize the issue of photo taking in the polling center, and rightly so. But what happens is that returning officers and presiding officers curtail excessively communication, so that even if there is a problem, we don't get to know about it. And I'll give an example of the Msabweni by-election, where we had serious problems communicating with the agents on the ground, because the returning officer becomes a power by officer, a power by themselves. You cannot make the phone call, you cannot do this. Why are they agents? How will we know when something goes wrong if presiding officers develop their own rules on the ground? Finally, on the issue of mass transfers, we are dissatisfied with the vague answer that was given about the 3 officers and the action being taken. The reason being that one of the cabinet secretaries had said publicly to one of the presidential candidates that they know their work and they are doing their work, could this cabinet secretary be one of the 3 people under investigation? Thank you.
Okay. I think for my 1 minute, yes. Chairman, I think we have spoken a lot and we have given our views as the UDA and Kenya Kwanza coalition. But there is one question that we need clarity from your end as the presidential returning officer. Which form exactly are you going to be using for tallying the presidential result? We have the form 34A and we have the form 34B. And supposing the form 34B has an error and is not indicative of what happened at the polling center, the form 34A, which forms are you going to tally the presidential vote if tallying center at the polling center? Will the parties have an opportunity now that we would have taken photographic image of the form 34A? Will we have an opportunity to relay information to you so that if during the transmission there is a problem with what is being transmitted, it's exactly different from what was the real form from form 34A? What is the commission going to do? Without overemphasizing what has been raised by Professor Kindiki on the electoral code of conduct that was signed by all candidates. Chairman, we did a letter to you complaining about Jacaranda. You did respond to us, but through the media. Our concern is this. Candidates are tweeting and saying they're the ones who are in control of certain kiosks that have been meted out in places like Jacaranda. Why wouldn't the commission take action against such candidates, including suspending or expelling them or removing them completely from the race? That is the only way you can send a message. We still don't have a satisfactory answer from your end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me say a few things. And I'm happy you say you put some of these things in writing, so we shall adequately respond. You wanted to make closing remarks? I heard you several times. Yeah, please make it brief.
Yes. My running mate will give our closing remarks, please, because we will work as a team. And we'd like to do them from in front there. The camera isn't getting the right shot.
Please keep to the
Yes, we will keep to the 2 minutes. We'll give from here. We don't know. We don't know why we had to be pushed to that corner, but it doesn't matter.
Keep to the agenda of the meeting. Yes. Keep to the agenda of today's meeting. Yes. The politics will be. I wrote to you for this meeting. I itemized the issues. Please. Yes. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, the commissioners, our competitors, and everyone else. Ours is a closing remark that is brief. The IBC, we thank the IBC for inviting us. Allow me to read. The IBC, we thank you for inviting us for this meeting. It has been very useful. I reiterate our earlier position that the support for electronic voter registration, we are for that as option A and option B. In our manifesto to be launched in the next few days, we support, and we still insist we are supporting, the ICT technology. I am in it, and I know it is possible to have credible elections dependent on ICT. IBC, Mr. Chair, you have done a good job, and anything that borders intimidation, don't allow it. The ground has changed. Kenyans are depending on you. Do what is right. We know that your job is not easy. During the nomination, we learned that some of your staff did not sleep for 3 days. Going to the 9th, 2022, you might even go for a week or so without sleep. You have our prayers, and because we shall be praying for you, you shall overcome. For Kenyans, please keep peace and more peace. Elections come and go. Don't fight. Our request is to vote and change leaders. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, voting that is outside your agenda. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can add you another minute. Okay.
I have been vaccinated.
I believe those are closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, let me apologize for coming late. It was not intentional. You're aware, we had written an earlier communication that this meeting would start at 11. And unfortunately, our Secretary General called us last night that there was a change of time meeting, so I apologize for that. But having said that, I would request that in future, we should at least give us maybe 3-4 days notice of the actual timings, because but having said that, I would request that in future, we should at least give us maybe 3-4 days notice of the actual timings, because you understand, I think, you know, I was once told by Paul Muite that when you support a government, you criticize it when it goes wrong. So sometimes when you see criticism, I think in that spirit. Two final things. Thank you very much. Two final things. We all agree that we are, the digital highway is the place we are going. We support your commitment to the electronic register. We are trying to move our parties to also have nominations, like our competitors using an electronic register. So I think that's the direction we want to go. There has been notions that are not correct, that Kenya Kwanza wants a manual register. We do not want a manual register. If you give us sufficient safeguards that an electronic register will function without any chance of failure, then we are good. And finally, I was amazed at the number of staff, permanent staff, Iebc have. 800, in the region of 800 plus. Mr. Chairman, that's a very huge resource which Kenyans pay for. You should consider in future deploying that resource to help us with nominations in parties. I think really there should be a consideration, because it's a national resource, and they shouldn't be waiting to just run the elections. They can also help us run nominations in our parties, with the expertise they have. In any case, Mr. Chairman, a democratic election will be heavily informed by the kind of nominations we do. If the nominations are not democratic, you end up with elections that are not democratic. So I think going forward, you should consider as IEBC working with political parties so that we can leverage more on the resource you have, which is a public resource, to assist grow political parties as institutions of governance. That because I believe that the strength of a democracy is dependent on the strength of the democratic institutions, including political parties that exist. Finally, we have no problem with any Kenyan serving in any capacity, so long as they have been recruited competitively and they have the requisite skills and competences. We have absolutely no preference for any Kenyan from any community. And if our competitors have a problem with certain Kenyans who come from certain communities, you can work out with them. We have no problem if they are replaced. But we want every Kenyan to be given a chance, and the measure should not be ethnicity, the measure should be competence, whether they are competent to do whatever it is that they are doing. I am on record, Mr. Chairman, saying that even if my competitor's brother was the chairman of IEBC, I would have no problem, so long as he is competitively recruited. Thank you very much.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm sure that the president has been vaccinated, so there's no risk. Let me say, Mr. Chairman, that we, as I said earlier, we appreciate very much you and the Commission and your staff for making yourself available to us and to our competitors to have this dialogue. I think of the political parties represented here, I can say that we in Azimio are the ones who have had historical grudges with the electoral body. Previous to yourselves, there was the ECK. We had issues with them. I know that it's no secret. You know we've had issues with this commission before. The courts have adjudicated that matter. But I want to say that we hope and trust that this time around that things will be different. And that's why we are here, to communicate with you, to dialogue with you, to fellowship together so that we can have this election be a credible election that Kenyans can accept and the world can celebrate. We have raised many issues, Mr. Chairman, and I think we've been in constant dialogue with each other over the past few months. We've written letters to you. We just want to make one entreaty to you and the Commission that when we write letters, would you please respond to us as quickly as possible, or at least communicate with us so that we can know when to expect a response. I just want to say that the issues that have been raised by my colleague here, Mr. Saitabao, about the ethnic imbalance in the Commission, these are not, light issues that should be taken lightly. I think you'll be providing, evidence of the questions he's raising. I hear what the Deputy President is saying, that he has no issue with Kenyans. And of course, we do not have issues with Kenyans. But I think that the principle of inclusivity requires, as our constitution dictates that public bodies be representative, that they represent the people of Kenya and represent the face of Kenya. I think we've seen some discrepancies. I agree again with the Deputy President that merit is important, but our constitution also dictates that we look at other vectors of identity, such as region, such as gender, such as disability. All these factors are important when you are constituting a public body like this one. So I think we shall be giving you the information that we have, and we hope to dialogue with you. We do not want to assume bad faith until we get your answers. The Russians say trust but verify. So we are trusting first, but then we'll verify after we get your responses. So, Mr. Chairman, we are grateful to you and the Commission, and we look forward to a free and fair election. Thank you so much.
Roots Party, you have... Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Brano Cage. I'm the head of campaign secretariat for Roots Party, headed by Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya. Chairman, you may have noticed that we have donated a lot of our time to Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. It's because we really appreciate and understand the sensitivity and the magnitude of the work that you do. And most of the time, as politicians and political parties, we do not really take time to appreciate the kind of work that you're doing. So we continue to express our confidence in the work that you're doing. We'll continue to support the Commission where we are needed. And we are appreciating so much that you continue to engage us. And we hope that this will continue all the way to the general elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me stand. I've been sitting for too long. You have asked a lot of questions. The media. Now, let me deal with the questions, then I'll sit, allow the media before I finalize. Oh, you want? I thought you wanted to ask questions.